Thank you for joining us for another episode of That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros and marketers who work for themselves. I am Michelle Kane. My company is Voice Matters, and I am here, of course, with my wonderful co host, Karen Swim of Solo PR Pro. And we are joined today by another fellow solo, which we are so excited about. It is Lisa Gerber. Lisa is a fellow solo, and she is the owner of Big Leap Creative, where she is a story strategist and communications expert who also has a podcast called Breaking Trail. She works with purpose driven leaders who want to make the world a better place, and she helps them articulate their ideas and get others on board. Story is the catalyst for change in Lisa's line of work. And when she helps others make their idea of change happen, she amplifies her own desire to save the planet. We like people with big goals like that. In, in 2004, Lisa left her dream job as director of marketing at a ski resort to start Big Leap Creative, which was her own big leap, if you will. When she's not in the office or with us on the podcast, she might be out skiing, trail running, or mountain biking with her husband and dogs. That's where she does her best creative work, which, as solos, welcome, Lisa. That's what we say. Do your best work
Cool.
the way that works for you. We're so happy to have you here.
We're so happy to have you. And I want to add one note for our listeners. Lisa is a complete and total rock star who will energize you and inspire you within 10 minutes of spending time with her. And she also is very distinguished. She's a sought after speaker who has shared the stage with Michelle Obama. So,
well, like, okay, I'll accept that. That's a stretch. We were at the same event for sure.
But I love to me, that's sharing stage.
Yeah, especially
in this invited as speaker, and
that's right.
Absolutely. One of the other speakers is Michelle Obama. It is a big deal. I would actually probably make a badge out of it, and it would be like I'd have a frame around Facebook, and I would tell everybody I know, I was a speaker at the same event as Michelle Obama. Thank you very much.
We shared the same green room.
Oh my God. It's pretty amazing. Speak at the same event.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you do inspire us, Lisa, not to make you crazy.
Thank you. I know. This is an amazing introduction and start to my morning here early here on the West Coast. Thanks, both Michelle and Karen, for having me.
Well, hey, thanks for kicking off your day with us. We definitely want to talk about how story is a driving force in your work while we're here. But we also, what really spurred this, we knew we wanted to have you as a guest, but one of your recent blog posts really touched us, which was the battle with time, which was from that bittersweet space, with your dad. So we do thank you for talking about that with us, because we know it's very personal. But, as solos, we have the freedom to work when and where and how we want, which is great. But the way you talk about dealing with that dilemma, you said it so well in the post, saying the battle with time is between two players, ambition and happiness, and how, as much as familial obligations draw us and compel us, at the same time, it's like, well, there's a lot of work going on, and, I'm hitting my stride. And so you mentioned a decision-making process that was involved with that. I don't know if that's something you'd care to touch on?
Sure. Well, one thing I think we can all probably agree on is ever since I started my own business in 2004, it's like there's always a level of stress. Like I'm either stressed because I'm not busy or I'm stressed because I am busy. So there's always something going on. So that's something, now it's been 17 years for me that I've been more and more aware of, and more trying to find my sort of balance with that, because obviously you can't just be living with stress all the time. That's not why we did this, why we struck out on our own. And when my father, when his illness turned for the worse, and I didn't know. I felt like I needed, well, I guess we should give some background for those who haven't read post is that, my father had been diagnosed with cancer, and, he lived with it for many years until it turned for the worse. And he lived in Florida. I live up here in Idaho, and he always downplayed everything, right? So he was admitted into the hospital is the short story. And this is when I was starting to think we need to do something. We need to get him up north with family in Boston. And I have so much going on, and things are going really well with work. And but I can't, I just don't have time for this. Right. And he, of course, is like, it's fine. They're going to let me out on Monday and blah, blah, blah. So that's when I had to make the decision. Is this serious enough for me to go down there? And do I set my work aside for that, which is the really hard decision. So I did do it. I did go down there, and he was released from the hospital much worse than I had imagined. It was essential that I be there. And then to make this road trip, I was going to, have my brother drive him back up to Boston. And I was just going to send them off, pack up his apartment and send them off to go live out the rest of his days at my, which could be another year. You don't know when you get to this stage. So it was at that point that I also decided I'm going to do this road trip with them up north in the middle of the pandemic. By the way, we left that part out, that this was this was in early April 2020, when the entire world was shut down. And so now we're going to take my father, the remainder of his things, his cat, my brother. We're going to drive from Florida up to Boston. My father not in a good space at all. And to set aside work was a hard choice to make in hindsight. If I had not done that, I don't know how I could live with myself.
Right. And that is the crux of it. And as you mentioned, I mean, it's stressful enough, but to toss in the pandemic, I know you like a challenge, but for real.
I mean, seriously, it was so eerie. Even flying from here, from the West Coast down to Florida, like I went through Detroit on Saturday afternoon, and I took a video. I actually posted it. There wasn't a soul in the terminal. The restaurants were all closed. All the gates were empty. There were no employees. I walked from one end to the other until I got to my gate, and there was a person working there and 3 people sitting at the gate on a Saturday afternoon in the Detroit airport. It was the eeriest thing in the world. It was also kind of a blessing, because driving in the road trip, there was no one on the roads. And we had, we were able to stop at rest areas. I had food packed for us so that we didn't have to go into restaurants. We didn't have to go into restrooms. We used the woods. I got poison ivy.
No. You left that out when I heard the story last.
Oh, that's terrible. Good times.
This road trip ended up being the memory of a lifetime. We pulled off when we got to Washington, D.C., and we did a little detour through the city because there was no traffic. So we just like cruised through and looked at the monuments and stuff. And it was cool. We drove through New York City, like across whatever bridge that would have been on our way up to Boston. And there's no slowdowns, no traffic. So in a sense, it was great. We were able to just like fast track up there and get my dad into a good place. I spent the weekend, and then it was Easter Sunday, and with my brother and his family, and got the cat settled in. And my father, he was there for 6 weeks before he passed away on May 23rd. So it was the timing couldn't have been better, and I just left with the sense that I did what I needed to do, and thank God I did not prioritize work, So,
I think, Lisa, I've read the story, and then you and I have had private conversations, and you've shared that story, and it moves me every time. Hearing it now, though, a year after, of more than a year being in this pandemic, and thinking about so many of the life changes. I'm struck by a few things. Number one, during the pandemic, life didn't stop. So we still were faced with these big life changes and things that were happening that sometimes had nothing to do with COVID. Losing a parent, and I know that you have a close-knit family. If you guys don't follow Lisa on social, their family holiday photos are epic. They will make you say, can they adopt me? Can I be part of this awesome family? So, you talked about that decision. Do I prioritize work over life? And I think as solos, we always struggle with those decisions because we want to show up for our business. We want to be good stewards of this thing that we've created. Sometimes there's also a little bit of fear. If I let go, what will happen? Making that decision, did that cascade into a different perspective for you in your business, and how does that inform like how you practice today? Because you do seem in a different, better place, even pandemic.
Yeah. Well, what you made me think when you were just asking that question is that one thing, our clients engage with us to do the work, and they have empathy for what's going on in our worlds for sure, but only to a degree, right? We need to get the work done for them. And so I'm always I think that's the balance right there is, in this case, they understood that my father was at his end of life, but there are a lot of life dramas that come into our world that shouldn't be our clients' problems. And so we have to kind of work through that. I recall a time I was in my grandmother's hospital room with my laptop on her legs and, having a conference call with a client because they don't care that my grandmother is ill. We need to get the stuff done. So that's the constant struggle that we don't have other people usually that we can rely on. So we can't always be every time something comes up. Sometimes we have to work through it.
Yeah. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel that for me, the shift this past year is really leaning into the fluidity and not making work a silo, not making it like work is in this box and life is in this box, but understanding that I have a whole life and work is a part of my life, not my whole life, but it's a part of my life. And thinking of it that way allows me, as Chip is saying, to lean into the flexibility and freedom on a daily basis. And so when those times happen where work has to take a little more priority, it's not that big of a deal. And if life has to take a little more priority, it's not that big of a deal. I think also understanding that the work can always get done. And you're right. Clients could care less at the end of the day how the sausage gets made. They just want to eat. So if that means pulling in other people to make the sausage because you can't, that's really okay. As long as the quality is there and the results are there, they could care less. It's why I'm, really pushing back against people who feel like they have to have, the traditional office hours. Who said that? Nobody cares, and to me, it's like, I can go run off to for a hike in the woods with my dog in the middle of the day because I always have my phone. I have my office with me. If something urgent happens that I need to respond to, I can respond to it, but I don't have to sit at my desk from 8 to 5 because somebody 50 years ago decided that was a good idea.
Right.
I think too, the pandemic has, it's a way of saying it, kind of even the playing field as far as personal time and work time. It's kind of it's humanized everyone. We've all been thrown into these virtual situations where, we were chatting about this before we started recording of, we're coming as we are for the most part. At this point, no one cares. It was a funny example of that. I had a chamber marketing meeting this morning, and one of the attendees who normally is working from their office since we reconvened, was working from their home office for the first time. So it was their first personal time dealing with their dogs barking, and they were over apologetic, and the rest of us were like, "Oh, we're so over it. Just whatever. It's fine." Oh, you're new here. Okay. And
That's exactly. Oh, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. No. Please go ahead.
That the pandemic hasn't really pre-pandemic. It was the same. It was the same for us, but we were juggling everything. We had the flexibility, so that hasn't changed anything. But culturally, it has changed everyone, and I think that that's really cool. So, for example, this office where I am, the bedroom door is right there. And I alerted my husband, it's early here. So I said, I'm going to be on a podcast and there's going to be video. And he's like, well, how am I going to be able to walk out? I was like, you just walk out and you walk across. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Like people walk across the background of Zooms all the time. There's like no issue there.
We'll wave to him.
Just make sure you have clothes on.
Yeah. Well, can I tell you that I have been treated to a client's husband walking across in a bathrobe, and I'm like, thank you for wearing a robe. Like, as long as you have on, pants, I don't care. I could. It's like whatever. We have lives, and there are people in our lives, and they're not always going to play by the same rules as we do, and that's okay. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I watched and that Actors on Actors little live stream that Kaylee Coco does, and can't remember the actress that she was interviewing, but she had to do this video in her bathroom. And I thought, yeah, because that's okay, because they were having work done and it was noisy. And so her husband had sort of did set design on the bathroom, and it was really cute, but she was clearly in her bathroom.
That is great.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I have to say, I have to concur that your social is amazing, and I know I personally have always been inspired by your Instagram posts, especially that summer you went to France. So you to us, you're living that solo's dream. And what nugget or two did you learn from those experiences that can help push the rest of us into why can't I do that? I can.
Yes, that was the year I turned 50, and I wanted to spend a month. I wanted to spend 2 months. I got 1 month. That's okay. I'll take it.
That's all right. Yeah.
France. And it was awesome. So I will tell you, there were a few things. First of all, I encourage everyone to do it. It's not as I knew 3 or 4 years in advance that we were going to do this. So lots of things had been in the works before that. Clients were alerted, but I were hopefully not going to be affected because I was going to continue to work. And we found a little place in the countryside in the southwest of France. Lesson number 1, make sure you have really awesome internet and a backup, because that was our problem. We got there and countries operate different than ours. Even in our own country, we have internet outages, but this one lasted for like the whole time we were there pretty much. So that was a massive, massive setback. What was the other thing is you're going to work a lot less than you think you are.
because France.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's self-explanatory at this point.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. There's a bottle of wine calling my name.
Been there, done that.
France, and I'm dealing with this. Yeah. It's like, I think there's more important things I can be doing, but the work got done. Everybody was fine. And I got to spend a month there, and it was amazing. And I wonder, do you both, are you sort of geographically independent in your work?
Pretty much.
Do you have to be on site for things?
Oh, no. No, not at all. The thing that keeps me grounded is my fur baby.
Yes. For me, I have one client that I do in-person events for from time to time, but outside of that, people can always be hired to do that, right? So it's not like it's a firm thing.
Yeah.
But Yeah. So
I'm not. I'm completely in terms of that. I have the freedom to be location independent. I really could work from anywhere. I've started to take advantage of that a little bit more, but only as far as our car will take us because I don't want to leave my fur baby behind. So
Sure.
yeah.
Which has been the way it is the past year. By either you can't even go internationally, can't even go to Canada right now.
No.
And so we've been discovering places within a 4 or 5 hour drive of here. I've lived here for 20 years, and towns and areas I have never been to because I have no other choice. But let's go see what's over here.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is fun. Cool part of it. Fun to explore your state and discover like, oh wow, there's things. Wow, this is really nice, actually.
Exactly.
Exactly. Who knew?
You know, I'm going off to France when Lost Trail, Montana is right over the, right over there, an amazing place to visit. Exactly.
Still go to France when things are nice and super normal, because I will, and my fur baby will be able to live without me while I'm traveling. But for now, I'm good with being home with her or wherever we are on the road together.
She's so cute. So cute.
She is something. Little Miss Southern Belle. Well, another thing that we love about Lisa is that the way she brings the best of both worlds in her work. In your work, Lisa, you have that keen digital savvy, right? And, where everyone's data, but you bring it back around to storytelling. How do you maneuver that with your clients? I'm like, yeah, data's great, but we still need to create feelings.
Yes. And that's really where I've gone more and more into that and moved away from the data, just not to detract from the importance of doing our best to track and measure it, but especially in the nonprofit world where I've evolved in the past 5 years, is organizations who are working so hard to get people to care about their thing and not able to do it. And to see that they're just, if you look at their stuff, what they're talking about, there's so much potential for them. And they're talking about the things that matter to them and not understanding why it's not getting others on board. And so it's making that emotional connection and really trying to break down, what does that mean? Because we use these words all the time, right? Talk about telling a story and making an emotional connection, but what does that really mean? But when we talk about, you're making a case and you've got all of these stats and all of this data about why your, whatever it is, your cause is such a problem in the world right now and needs to be fixed. And then to use story to breathe life into those numbers, just with a couple examples. So lately I've been doing these talks, virtual presentations at conferences, right, and workshops to teams. And if you get a whole bunch of people on a Zoom grid and we're all looking in gallery view, and sometimes you have like 150 people on your session, and I'll do a breakout where I will ask everyone to grab a prop and to tell the story of why they do what they do, incorporating this prop that's nearby. Usually they have a picture of a kid or something near their desk that means something to them. And I send them into breakout rooms of 3 people, and they do it for a few minutes. And then we come back and talk about how that worked for them. And then I ask them if it shifted the energy in the space, learning about 2 other people in this grid of 2D faces, this Brady Bunch grid. And now it's brought to life through 2 people that you didn't know before, and how much a story shifts the energy like that. And so then to help them do the same thing with their organization.
Lisa, I love that. And I think that what you're doing is adding structure around something that I believe all communicators want to do. We all understand the importance of the storytelling and the narrative and really moving people to action. I mean, it's part of what we're supposed to do on behalf of clients. But I think that people bump up against the challenge of clients not being comfortable with telling those stories. And so they tend to want to fall in that mode of saying what everybody else is saying and not looking too different and using the same kind of words and the same kind of framework. And it's so boring. You know, I don't know how many, I have these conversations all the time. Like, and I've really started, you know, I've been in business for 16 years, so I could care less at this point. I know enough to know that clients come and go, and not being truthful and completely honest is not going to hold on to a client. And so I think I'm bolder than in year 16 than I was in year 1 for sure. So I'll tell people it's boring. No one cares about that. I get that you care deeply about these words, but no one else cares. It's just ugh. Or else,
Karen,
this is stupid jargon. What does this even mean?
The so
Karen,
what
I
factor.
have to tell you, you gave me, this is the perfect metaphor for what we were talking about before we went live with my hair. And I used to color it and straighten it so that I had like this, what I thought I had to be like this polished professional look so that I fit in. And then I stopped. I went natural. You know, for those who aren't on the video, it's gray,
Gorgeous.
it's curly. Thank you. Sometimes I think it's a mess. It's ridiculous. It was an emotional roller coaster for me. And now I get people, strangers, stopping me and complimenting me about it. But before, I never got anything when I was doing all the work for it. It's the exact same thing.
Yes.
And we get clients who are, you know, they talk about privacy issues, and, you know, I get it. You know, sometimes we have, you know, we're in healthcare, we're in abuse situations, and we can't use names, and there's ways around that, but it is so critical not to whitewash it, not to,
or
doesn't gloss.
You know, I find, and, you know, help us with this. I find that people sometimes make it way more complicated than it needs to be. And it's almost like they're afraid
Totally.
to be simple because they feel like it makes them seem less smart, less expert. And so they'll throw, like, if you hear the word platform one more time, I'm going to scream my head off and go running down the street. What does that even mean? To 99% of the country. What does that mean? What does platform even mean? A platform is what? What is that? What is it? What's the benefit? What's the, you know, but you know, I deal with a lot of technology clients, and they're enamored of these terms because their colleagues are throwing them around, and they lose sight of your audience doesn't care, and the media definitely doesn't care. So what does that mean? And breaking it down, like, I think, you know, that old adage that you need to be able to, a 5-year-old should be able to understand it. It's a good thing. Simple is sometimes so powerful, so powerful to just be plain spoken and simple and use real words and not feel like you are a contestant on Jeopardy. This is not Jeopardy. I love Jeopardy, but it's not Jeopardy.
And I think sometimes too, they're so close to it, and they think, well, I have to make it more because I live with it, and it's just, or everyone's heard it. Well, no, they haven't heard it.
Right. Absolutely. And they're not paying that close attention to you.
I'm sorry. No one's thinking about you all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So repetition is also good, even if they have heard it. I can hardly blame people for making it more complicated than it is, because a lot of, when you read about, you know, brand storytelling, and there's the 12 steps and following the hero's journey, and you know, all these elements and components, and this massive, you know, format that you have to use. And I talk about a much simpler approach. First of all, we speak in story all the time. We're telling everybody is a storyteller, and we're not creating these literary masterpieces. I'm reversing my words.
It's not Canterbury Tales.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would argue that the story that you're telling is more important than how you tell it. And that's the thing, is so often we're just telling the wrong stories. We're talking about how, and sometimes they're not even a story. It's just like, we've been around for this many years and we've won these kinds of awards and we're a 501c3. and this is our mission, and it's full of jargon.
Yeah.
And we're not asking the right questions that evoke the right stories that are what our people want to hear.
Yeah.
I could actually, I have a whole process where you like ask the questions internally to discover what stories are most effective, which we probably don't have time
for our communicators out there, I think I'm hearing that the advice to them is to not be afraid to push past this complicated jargon or the client feeling that they need to mirror everybody else. And you've got to take that step of helping to create the breakthrough where you are showing them how the power of real storytelling. Sometimes I do that, quickly by just redefining their story in a way that I would tell it. And then they go, oh, that's amazing. Can you be a spokesperson? And I'm like, I can help you to do this for yourself. How's that? Even better.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's important too to reassert with, some clients, either they forget or they don't realize the power of what emotional reaction are we, not to be manipulative, but what are we trying to evoke from these prospects when they hear the story? How is this going to make you feel? I work with some clients where, it's a product, we're selling product, but it's not so much that, well, this thing works this way. It's, oh, I can feel the breeze on my face.
Yes.
When I'm, using this product, and that's going to remind me of that time when that song came on the radio. And a lot of times it takes a little bit of coaching to get them to say, oh, okay. It's not just about buy my thing.
That's right. It's about asking the right questions and reframing the question. I actually just did a video on this. If the person that you're talking to, that you're trying to get the story out of, is too much jargon, they're being very technical, or just not giving you what you want, and you want to get more emotional, like you said, Michelle, get into the feelings. So how did it make you feel after, before, that kind of thing. Just keep re-asking the question to reframe so that they give you something that's of use to the story.
Give us something to work with, people. No,
come on, work with me here.
Corporate of companies, really, and I would say down to each employee level, people do want you to feel something about their brand. They really do, because if you work there, you want to be excited about working there. You want to feel proud. And there are certain things that you want people to feel, remember, when they see your brand name, when they buy your service or product. So everybody wants that at the core. They just aren't able to, I think, articulate that.
Yeah.
That's so true. So true. Well, before we wrap things up with you, Lisa, we need to know you probably can't choose one favorite, but what's been your favorite project or adventure to date? This could be personal or professional. And it's okay if it's still going to France.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Just go with your gut. Go with your gut.
Yeah. Well, I am. Oh, I totally have it. I have a project with a animal welfare organization that they asked me to help rename them, because they were no longer. They used to be called Panhandle Animal Shelter, but animal welfare has changed a lot, you may know, and it's not just about animals in cages anymore. And so they wanted to stop being identified as a shelter, and Panhandle meant the Panhandle of Idaho, but they were no longer geographically constrained because they help all over the Northwest. So went through a whole renaming process, and I am not a naming professional, but it's just like a title to your story.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they are now Better Together Animal Alliance, because we're all better together. And I am super, super proud of this project. And it is just so great to see their, name and signage around and all that stuff.
Oh, I love it.
That's pretty fulfilling.
That is gratifying.
And it's something that you're passionate about too, because
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm now on the board of that organization. Now that that's all done, they've asked me to join their board. And yeah, obviously, animals are the best.
They
They are the
are. They are. We are all animal parents here on That Solo Life today.
And aren't we all better together because of it?
Oh, you know it. You know it. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh, Lisa, we can't thank you enough for spending time with us today. We could go on and on and on.
I
So
know, I could.
we definitely need to have you back.
I would
Maybe.
love to.
Come do a storytelling, webinar with us because I think our
Yes.
audience would definitely benefit from your wisdom.
I would love to do that. That would be so much fun. I
Fantastic.
miss all of you solos.
Yeah.
No, this group is the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
to our listeners, if you work for yourself or even if you have a micro agency, and this is not a sales pitch at all, it's just literally comes from the heart. Solo PR Pro is probably the best thing I know I've ever done professionally because you get to sit among smart people like Lisa and Karen and so many other people to be named who selflessly give of their knowledge because I mean like your Animal Alliance, we all know we're better together. The profession is viewed better if we all do our best, and it's just phenomenal. So that's my little
Oh my gosh,
pitch.
having a tribe is so, so important. Just
Yes.
cannot be understated. Overstated cannot be overstated.
There you go. As I was saying to a friend today, we're like, is it Blur's Day? What day is it? None of us know, but we're getting the work done, and that's what matters. And making sure our personal lives are cared for too. So that's the moral of this story today. But we do thank everyone for joining us, and especially Lisa for joining us. And it's just wonderful to be together in this episode. And so please do share it around because I think this one especially is worthy of that. And until next time, thanks for joining us on That Solo Life.